now. So, welcome all to the first of Time Isn't Up Mental Health Foundation talk with professional cricketers, disability cricketers, etc. In this series, we're getting down to the nitty gritty of mental health within professional sports and grassroots sports. Today, we've got Matt Milnes, who is a Yorkshire fast bowler, ex Kent and Nottinghamshire, if I'm correct in saying.
Correct, yeah.
Done my research, you see. But yeah, Matt, welcome to the episode, and happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. Now I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. So obviously you've just come back from pre-season tour in Abu Dhabi. Yeah.
Yeah,
How was that?
yeah. It was very hot. I think the last few days were 38 degrees or something like that, and yeah, different conditions to back here certainly. So, but very good to be outside and get some warm weather training, get bowling off the full run and that sort of thing. The guys also got to play a few games out there, and there's sort of a mini T20 competition, which is obviously a very good experience for some of the younger guys to go up against some pretty experienced cricketers.
Good. And obviously we touched a little bit before about obviously you coming back from injury at the moment, and you wasn't able to get on the park yourself. How do you combat that physically and mentally, and how me as a cricketer as well, if I'm injured, I hate being on the sidelines, and it's frustrating, and sometimes it's like looking into the abyss and you can't see a way out. How are you coping with that, and what mechanisms do you do yourself and have in place that could help others?
Um, I've been through the last sort of couple of years. I've gone through different stages of it, really. Obviously, this tour just gone. I was sort of training on my own a little bit. I wasn't allowed to bowl at batters. Just bowling at a stump can be pretty tedious at times. Um, and obviously, those guys are prepping for the first game in April, whereas I'm on a slightly different journey, trying to get back fit to hopefully play a part further down the line in the season. So, yeah, it's very, very hard at times. In previous seasons when I've been ruled out for a long period of time and there's been cricket going on, I've gone through phases of trying to be in and around it, trying to stay completely away from it. Um, I'm not sure which I prefer. I go through phases, as I said. Um, but I think the last sort of time I tried to detach myself from cricket a little bit, give myself a bit of a break from it and tried to get into something new, which I found helped a lot, gave me a bit more purpose. I did a bit of coaching this summer just gone, sort of with the academy and with a school in York as well. So it was that was really good because it put my mind elsewhere and sort of made you feel a bit more useful again. Whereas obviously when you're just doing rehab 24/7 and there seems like there's no end to it, it obviously can get a bit boring and a bit frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. And like you touched there, obviously you've been the last couple of years have been strenuous from yourself, obviously on an injury front. And you're saying this year, last season, obviously you went out, did some coaching, etc., with the younger talent coming through. Do you find the experience you're going through and you've been through, you can then feed onto them, especially from an injury front, and how for them to combat in the future?
Absolutely nail on the head. Like I think obviously I'm not happy that I've had this journey in the last couple of years, but I think in the longer term, I probably will think back to this period of time and actually be quite grateful for it. Because I think it teaches you a lot of things about yourself, and obviously allows you then to put yourself in those shoes when I don't know, like an academy lad has got injured or a younger guy's got injured, and you can be in a far better position to actually speak to them, and you know what they're going through. So as much as I've absolutely hated the last couple of years, I think there will be positives that come from it. And yeah, I really enjoy coaching, and I think as a coach, some of the best coaches I've worked with are people that probably look after the player and sort of the human as well. And I think that experience will hopefully allow me to do that.
Yeah, perfect. And like that, you know, for me, you've hit the nail on the head there as well with regards to where you've been and how you can then, you know, interpret that into the youngster lads coming through and the girls coming through the pathway. And for them to know that obviously when you do get injured, that's not just the end. There is different avenues you can go down and just keep, you know, plugging on. So obviously as a kid coming through, you was down in Kent. Is that right?
I was in
No.
Notts originally, so I that's where I'm from. Grew up there, played club cricket for my local team all the way through till sort of 18 when I went to uni. Went to uni, came back, worked for a couple of years, um, and then got a contract at Notts for 2 years, and then moved to Kent in 20. God, testing my
18?
2018, 19, yeah. And then I was there for maybe 4 years before moving to Yorkshire. So yeah, I've seen obviously a few different counties along the way, and
You've been from the length and breadth of the UK, from the south
yeah,
to the north.
exactly,
How
exactly.
how does that impact you as obviously a family, you know, a person yourself, with friends being down south, and then you went to Durham University, had friends up north, and then moved back down to, you know, Notts in Kent. Where do
Yeah,
you, you know, how do you combat the move as a family and as a unit?
it's very, very hard. I mean, so yeah, we when I moved down to Kent originally from Nottingham, I was obviously going into a bit of a. I knew nobody down there, and I went into sort of a bit of an unknown. But I felt like I had to further my career. So, and I was also single at the time, so that probably was an easy decision because I was like, I want to be a cricketer. I feel like because you're moving with cricket, you're probably going to make some mates down there naturally. I think the move to Yorkshire was probably a bit more tricky because I had my partner at the time. My partner's family are down there in Kent, and I obviously have moved up here with her. And yeah, that makes things a lot trickier because you sort of there's more at play where you're thinking about other people and the knock-on effects of this and that sort of thing. So it's tricky because you're moving people away from family, and if I'd feel very guilty if she didn't enjoy it or whatever that if it or maybe didn't get a job that she liked or whatever that might be. So yeah, it's very hard. I think in professional sport, there's no real security. Obviously, you've got a year, maybe 2, 3 year contracts at times. So it's potentially never feel like you're settled because that's not that really long of a time. So yeah, it is hard. I think the main thing for me that I've learned over the my career is that you can't really look too far ahead. It's if you start to do that, then you probably start to overthink things and you're getting a bit of a rut with it. So yeah, I think I've always felt like the moves for me have I've enjoyed them and they've worked, which has been a benefit. So that's helped. I've not had a move where I've sort of
You
thought,
felt,
what have I done here?
yeah,
So yeah,
you felt, you know, am I going to regret this at the end of the
yeah,
day? Yeah. And I suppose that's hard as well because, like you say, obviously now you've got the missus, her family, your family, etc., moving away from what you've known. And how do you then integrate into a new set of lads, like the dressing room banter, etc.? Do you find that difficult, or does it just come naturally? Especially with being a professional sports athlete, you're all going against each other, but with each other at the same time.
yeah. I've been very lucky in that I've moved to two extremely good dressing rooms. When I moved to Kent, the lads were brilliant, and then when I moved to Yorkshire as well, they've been absolutely outstanding. So I think you naturally will find because of the nature of it, I think you naturally find that you'll make some good friends there. I'm pretty quiet, I'd say, when I first meet people. So probably take slightly longer than maybe someone a bit more extrovert on first meeting. But I think certainly now I've got some very good friends up here, and I feel like I've fitted in nicely. But yeah, it can be quite a daunting thing. As I said, I'm probably lucky that I've done it a couple of times, so um, I can understand it a bit more. I probably understand myself a little bit more in terms of how I go about it.
And that was something I was just about to come on then, is obviously understanding yourself from you being a player coming up in the academies to now. If you could tell your younger self one thing of what you've learned and where you could change a little bit or not overthinking away, what would it be?
Um, that's a great question. I think the main thing I've learned and got a lot better at is staying level. Um, the the game itself, the everything that comes with it, not just the actual performance element, but everything that comes with it, like the moving and that sort of thing. I think if you get too high and too low, it certainly it can be quite dangerous. So I've tried very hard to stay level. Certainly in the last few years, that's been a massive challenge because there's not been too many highs; it's been more lows. But yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's a huge thing. It allows you to just take each sort of day as it comes, and as I said earlier, not get too far ahead because I think you can overthink then, and you can try and plan things, but things don't necessarily go to plan. So it's a combination of those two, really. Yeah.
Right, sweet. So just touch on briefly there. Obviously, we talk about the ebbs and flows of the game, and especially in professional sport, the highs and lows are massive. You've got you're playing for promotion or relegation, or you winning in the T20 Blast, or potentially going into the 100 draft, winning the county championship. County Div 1 last year to go up to the championship this year. How do you ride the emotions of a promotion challenge or a relegation battle? How how does that differentiate? So for me, for instance, if you win the league, that night is absolutely amazing. You go out, you celebrate with the boys. Then the next day, you get that like come down that level head of, well, we've done that now. What's next? How or in the other way of relegation, right? We go out and commiserate, and then we've got to bounce back. What's next? How do you cope with that ebb and flow?
It is very hard, isn't it? I mean, that as you said there, the element of like you've worked all your life to try and succeed and win things. So, for instance, when we won the Blast, that next week was such a strange feeling because you're like, I've actually won it now, and like, I've like, that's such a cool thing, and it'll never leave you that memory, but it's like done.
Yeah,
And then the competition starts again. Um, and obviously, like, it's an amazing thing to say that you've done, and the memories and stuff is absolutely amazing, but it's such a strange feeling when you actually do it, and then it's like, well, that's that then, and we, things move on like so quickly. It's also like in sport where like people sort of good friends lose contracts and stuff, and then the next thing you know, they're replaced by someone, and they like you make you good mates for them and stuff like that. So it's those sorts of feelings in sport. I feel like they're really hard to get over.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I'm not sure I have many tips for it because it's just hard. Like it's the nature of the beast. Obviously, in terms of trophies and stuff like that, you can always work towards the next one. But there's certainly a period of time after, um, quite soon after, where you think like, what I've just worked really hard to get that, and then it's over, and then you like sort of I don't know, just in no man's land a little bit.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure I've got too many techniques, I'm afraid, on that because yeah, it's a very hard one to do. Um,
Definitely. And it's one of the reasons what I've looked into over the last couple of years, especially on, is like the highs and lows of, when you win and when you lose, is how do you combat that? What's in place, at the club, at the county, with the PCA, etc. Is there anything there to help you along the way? And if you needed to, say, for instance, let off steam, talk to someone about that, how would you go about that?
yeah, yeah, true. I think the club obviously have people in place. There's lots of the PCA also have a lot of things in place. They're absolutely amazing for all cricketers, really. They're absolutely fantastic. They give you a lot of support in obviously more ways than one, but obviously mainly on the mental side of the game. And then obviously you've got your sort of support network, which is a bit closer to home, and they're massive. I think you need to use them as much as possible in order to get probably an honest opinion at times,
Yeah.
which you might not want to hear, but I think that's important. But also just to get things off your chest a little bit. The last sort of couple of years for me, that's been huge. Like I'm not someone that's very good at at getting things off my chest, but I've certainly got better in the last couple of years. That's probably credit to my girlfriend. Like it's I've probably learned to be better at that.
Yeah.
So and she's been great for me in that sense. So yeah, that's a massive one. I think you've got to have people with a close support network that you trust, and you can just say anything really, because it's not so bad when the highs are there, but obviously when the lows come along, which is always going to happen, no matter who you are. It's really important to actually use that and have a sort of a method before it happens, because by the time it happens, it could.
It creeps up on you and it's there.
Exactly.
And that's one of the reasons why we're doing these, the podcasts or these video talks now, is just trying to get people to open up a little bit more and try and get people's stories out there, because like you're saying, obviously you got better at that now with your support network. So as you growing up as a kid, obviously you had family members there who's been through your whole cricketing journey. If you was to say one thing about having that network and having that nucleus around you, obviously I know one thing would be a massive thank you to them for being there through the highs and the lows. But how much would you say that it's vital to keep them around? Well, especially in the harder times when you tend to push people away. You shut yourself off, especially going for injuries, etc. It's welcoming them in a different way.
Absolutely. I mean, as you said, it's easy to um, put yourself in those positions when you're winning and when you're at the highs and stuff. It's when the lows come around and that sort of catches you off guard a little bit. I'm very lucky that I've had a family throughout that have supported me through my sort of cricketing journey, and it hasn't been the stereotypical journey at all. Like there was a lot of things along the way, and it probably wasn't until I was about 23 where I actually believed that, or was it maybe 21, 22, where I believed that actually this is a possibility. I could actually make a career out of this. So there's a lot of years in between that where you'd love to, but you probably need people around you to push you a little bit and to believe in you, I guess, because if you, I don't know, sometimes you might doubt yourself. I'm certainly one of those people, especially at a younger age. I certainly doubted whether it would ever actually happen. So I think having those people around you to sort of pump your tires a little bit as well, that helps. And yeah, just having those honest conversations. As I said, in the last few years, I've had to get a lot better at that, just to help sort of get things off my chest, and you're allowed to sort of have bad days on the journey, because when you've been injured for however long and you're doing the rehab 3 times, the same thing. There's some dark days in there, so it's important that you can just speak to people, and because as soon as you bottle it up, it probably makes it twice as bad.
Yeah, massively. And it's getting that stigma away of, especially as a bloke in a professional game where dressing room, you don't want to be seen to be the weak link in that dressing room, in that environment. It's always, if you go into a change room, it's that masculinity, it's the oomph around it. And I suppose, especially over the last 3 years, how have you seen the change room shift in more, being more open, more people talking? Or is there still that stigma around that that needs to be broken that little bit more?
I think it could always get better, no matter what stage it's at. But I think it has got a lot better. I know, like, the dressing room I'm in now is extremely good. Like, there's a couple of guys who I'm very close to, I could speak to about anything really. I think that's important. I think the PCA, as I mentioned them earlier, they obviously come in and do sessions with us as a group, and about sort of the sort of ebbs and flows of the season and how it affects your mental health and stuff like that. And I know Dom Bess works with the PCA a little bit on that sort of thing as well. So he's a bit of he's sort of a middleman with that a little bit as well. So yeah, it could always get better, but I've been very fortunate in the sense of the lads have really got around me. I don't know if many of them have actually been in this position at all, but they've certainly tried to understand it and understood when potentially you need space, when you need lads around you, and that sort of thing. And so, as I said earlier, like, Matty Revis has had a stress fracture end of last year, and he's been rehabbing with me this winter. So it's been nice from a selfish point of view. It's been quite nice to, like, obviously, and go through a little bit of the similar sort of journey. Obviously, it's not nice for him or me, but, like, just to have him there. And I think my experiences with things has probably helped him as well, because I made sure that he's at a stage where he could, rather than go to the physio or to the coach, whatever it might be, he could just come to me and run something by me, or anything like that. So I think that's been nice, and I quite like the idea of sort of looking out for him a little bit as well, because as I said, know what he's thinking, know what
where is that
those dark days look like, and they sort of thing. So yeah, but as I said, it can always improve, and I think it's certainly on that trajectory.
So one last question before we go, because I'm conscious of time and I'm conscious of, obviously, you've just come back, so I don't want to overrun as much as possible. What would you say if you could give any advice to anybody out there now, whether it's a grassroots cricketer, normal boy, girl, professional sports person? If you could give one bit of advice, what you've learned over the last 4 years, 5 years, in regards to mental health, regards to looking after yourself a lot more, what would that be?
I would say, as I said earlier, I think it's about staying level. I think having the support network around you allows you to do that, because I think as soon as you get things off your chest, if you're having that dark day or that crappy little period, let's say, as soon as you actually speak to someone about that and you're open and honest and a bit vulnerable, really, that makes you feel a whole lot better. I wish 5 years ago I knew that being vulnerable would make you better. I always thought it was probably the opposite. but I think that helps you stay level. So that low becomes less low. Um, so yeah, I think that's obviously I've been fortunate enough to have that support network around me. But I think if you don't have that, you potentially need to find a way of finding that, and then as I said, being quite vulnerable and allowing you to sort of just keep things a bit more neutral, I guess, and keep your outlook on things a little bit more neutral, because there is always light at the end of the tunnel.
And that's one thing it's one reason why our name is Time Isn't Up, because I believe, time is never up on any situation. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, speaking out, and hopefully we can get another episode of you later on in the series. It'd be great to see how you're getting on this season. Back end of the season, how you're coming on pre-injury, post-injury, and hopefully seeing you back on the park at Headingley.
Top man, thanks for having me.
Perfect, Matt. Thank you very much, mate.
Cheers.
Bye now.